Hi, and welcome back to the Global Gratitude Summit. I'm Luann Saraga Walters.
And I'm Sharon Saraga Walters.
Wow, we are going to dive deep into some really good stuff that will tie in what we're talking about when we say how gratitude, that emotion, that thought process, that what is that can affect us physically and of course emotionally, but spiritually and mentally and all these processes. Our guest today is just the person to do this. She views health from the big picture by taking a whole sense of what's going on in her patients' lives. She is double board certified in family medicine and integrative holistic medicine. And that really just means that she takes into account the whole person, treating the mind, the body, and the spirit synergistically, not as separate and independent entities, which includes how our emotions and our responses to our environments and the events in our lives can actually impact our health. Today, we're specifically talking about what role gratitude will play in that, of course. And our guest is Dr. Deepa Verma. She's a medical doctor who can speak to the language of her patients. And so because of that ability, she's sought after by many media outlets for her expert opinion on anything from aging to red tide. At her clinic, Synergistic Integrative Health in Clearwater, Florida, she combines conventional medicine with integrative and Ayurvedic medicines to provide custom processes for individual patients. That's custom medicine tailored exactly to each patient. And she is a key opinion leader also for pathway genomics, which I'd love to get into as well. But first, welcome Dr. Deepa Verma. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, this is very exciting. And I know we've, as we were talking in preparation for this summit, I told you, you just have this great ability in watching the interviews that you've done to really suss out the science and put it in layman terminology. So we've come to you for that. And let's start with this idea of the holistic sense of self. What is that and why is that important?
So when we talk about holistic sense of self, it's being aware of the mind, body, spirit connection. It's understanding that you can't have those things function separately or individually, which is sort of how I was taught more in traditional medicine. I am a traditional MD by training, and we're really taught to dissect the body. You know, like the brain is separate from the body, and each system has its own entity, and it just functions separately, which is not the case because in integrative medicine, which is really based on Ayurvedic medicine, it's looking at the mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul connection and how one affects the other and vice versa. So if there's no harmony or balance, you're going to have something that's off. So for example, if we're talking to people and they suffer from depression or anxiety, we must look outside just the brain chemicals and see what's going on with them physically. And it often leads us to maybe evaluating gut health, for example, which we term the second brain because of the neuroenteric connection, and which people have to understand. We make our serotonin in there. So it's just understanding that whole harmony, synergy, the optimal balance of the mind, body, spirit.
You know, it's almost like we've really kind of blossomed in medicine. I don't think 20, 30 years ago, this would have had much sense. Now it's gaining a lot of traction because would you say that we're understanding a lot more about how the body works together?
Yeah, I think, we have to understand also in the Western world, traditional medicine is fairly new. It's, just we'll go back to the early 1900s when the allopathic schools were started, are the MD. After that came the osteopathic schools, which are the DO doctors. And those are the two physicians. So if you are a physician, you're either an MD or a DO. But it's very new here. But when we look back at Ayurvedic medicine and how, even Chinese medicine, we're looking back at over 10,000 years history of science and medicine. Complex things that existed that made its way to the West, went through, got to Europe. We have Hippocrates, of course, who was still way ahead of his time. Then it came to the Americas, and it's so new that all we know is this traditional medicine, the pharmaceutical industry. And so ironically, we call this integrative functional medicine more new age medicine, which is sort of an oxymoron in itself because it's not. It's such an age-old medicine. But in the Western world, the new world, which was the last to be discovered, right, the last frontier, it's something that is just new to us. So what we're embracing now in terms of like yoga, the turmeric, the lifestyle, being plant-based, that's how I grew up. I'm first generation. My parents came to India, or came from India, in the mid 70s, and I was born thereafter. And I'm first generation, and I'm the bridge between, my culture and being American. So there was struggles there, and that's just going through, that type of transition when you're brought up in two different cultures. But I used to see my dad doing yoga. If my brother and I were ill or we had a cough, my mom would give us, milk with like, at that time we had dairy, but that's a whole nother story now. Turmeric, ginger, the spices. This is healing for you. Drinking coconut water. I mean, it was just, now these are such fads, or not fads, but they're like all the rage. These are the trends. So we're in a plant-based movement. We're embracing yoga, just everything that's very Ayurvedic, I guess, or very Asian and Indian, that type of things. I mean, acupuncture has been around too. So it's understanding those modalities, because we're not just looking at them as adjuncts to traditional medicine. We're actually using them as a primary source to
Mhm.
get well, because it's proactive instead of being reactive, waiting to fall sick and then going to try to get better. It's, what can I do to prevent myself from getting to that point of chronic disease?
Wow, I've already loved this conversation, and you just opened up so many things. But I know first we wanted to talk a little bit about emotions.
Yeah.
Yes. Dr. Verma, how do our emotions affect our health?
Gosh, they're most powerful thing. I mean, when we talk about stress, that's probably the number one killer, and probably the impetus for many physical conditions. When people, you hear people say, someone died of a broken heart, or stress is going to kill you. Stress releases inflammatory chemicals. One that's very common is cortisol, which comes from the adrenal glands. And when we talk about the adrenals, that's, when you have adrenal fatigue or burnout, which is very common in a very stressful environment, which is, living the American lifestyle. We are probably one of the highest stress nations, as compared to when you look at Europe or Asia, where people value their time. They value taking time off, taking naps, enjoying food, but healthy whole foods. But when we look at stress, or we look at, emotions, if we're not well, and the inflammatory chemicals, those substances basically predominate, and they set off a chain of reactions. It's not very simple just to say, okay, well, if you have high cortisol, this is going to happen. It's micronutrient deficiency, it's poor gut health, it's obesity, it's eating processed foods. Gut health really is the foundation for our health. So I always tell my patients, food is your safest form of medicine, or it's your slowest form of poison. Even Hippocrates said, let, food be thy medicine. All disease begins in the gut. Most people don't know that over 85% of serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is produced in the gut.
Wow.
So when someone presents with depression and anxiety, it's not just, here, take a Xanax or Zoloft. They might help, but it's only a temporary band-aid. In preventative medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, integrated medicine, we look for the root cause. We're not just treating the patient by the numbers. So I have a lot of patients who come to me, and who I've treated because I was a traditional MD, where they come to me and they say, well, my doctor said everything's okay because the numbers are fine, but I know I'm not okay. So it's that kind of repetitive pattern you see when people are saying, I'm just sick and tired of feeling tired and sick. We need to get to the root cause. So when
Yeah.
someone comes to me with depression and anxiety, I ask them, my health history questionnaire is very in depth. So I ask them everything, their family history. Is there mental disease in the family? What triggers have you experienced? PTSD. How's your gut health? I ask them down to how their bowel movements are. That says a lot. Your gut health is really the most predictive thing about how your overall health is going to be. I see people with leaky gut, with inflammatory disease, autoimmune disease. We have severe vitamin deficiencies, micronutrient deficiency. I call it the micronutrient deficiency epidemic. We're overfed and undernourished. So again, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. So I tell people, here we have a whole puzzle. You're coming in to me with maybe a few pieces. I'm going to give you the rest of the pieces so we can paint the big picture and you get an idea. So that takes me to all the different testing that I do. So in depth. This is not just a standard test that you go to Quest or LabCorp for. I do adrenal, thyroid, inflammation, hormones. I do gut health. I do mold toxicity, micronutrients, genetic testing. Um, there's just so many things that what we do in traditional medicine, is not, can't be translated to what we're doing in integrated medicine. We don't have the time, number one. We under insurance restrictions, and we tell people we only have 15 minutes, maybe at most, if you're lucky, 30 minutes. And that's not enough time. You can't even begin to talk to a person for 15 minutes and their office visit is over. And that kind of mentality or that type of practice of medicine is not working, and that people are looking outside the box. I mean, you can't treat someone in 15 minutes. And there was a very good study done that said people who do see cash-based physicians, or people who are thinking, the physicians who think outside the box, where they're not under the restrictions of insurance, they actually will spend less money in a year than they do seeing their insurance-based doctors. Why? Because when you're not getting better, you're going to see that doctor over and over and over again. I am a family physician by training. So I'm the jack of all trades. I'm the gatekeeper. So everyone had to come and see me first. Then I would sit there and delegate and say, okay, you're depressed, go see the psychiatrist. You have heart disease, go to the cardiologist. You have neuropathy, go see the neurologist. So they are just spending their whole life going and seeing doctors and specialists, spending money on pharmaceuticals, which now the prices are outrageous. So people see me maybe 3-4 times in the year. Their first 2 visits are very important. And then from there, it's just being preventative. So they get the ball rolling with being healthy, so they don't have to go see other physicians or other, specialists. They're not running into dead ends. They're getting answers because I'm doing in-depth testing.
And I love how you're connecting the dots here, because boy, this is a completely separate conversation too. We could really get into more, but the structure of how we have it set up right now is not addressing what's really going on with a person's health. And, it's really looking at that symptom, which you're speaking to. But as we look at this further, when you have the opportunity as a physician to sit down one-on-one with your patient and say, tell me what's going on in your life, and you see that they're high stressed, and you see that there's very little fun, love, compassion, gratitude, whatnot going on there. I love how you explained it at the beginning. This is a biochemical response within our bodies that how to read what those symptoms may pop up. Maybe they pop up in something like a diabetic response, or maybe they pop up in joint inflammation, or maybe they pop up in something else, and you know how to read it, so you know how to get there. And that's that important aspect of the why behind and the how, and what was so exciting to us about being able to do the Global Gratitude Summit, because now we finally are starting to see a lot of these studies actually reinforce what you have said from the Ayurvedic medicine practice has gone back centuries. It's got to be encouraging to you too. I didn't even factor in the fact that here you've got an experience with both, the Ayurvedic from your family experience, and then also conventional medicine, and being a trained medical doctor physician here. And are you encouraged to see the direction that we're going?
Absolutely. I think in the beginning it was a little more of a fad, a trend, when people started becoming vegetarian, and then, veganism, it's always hard to start something new because we're so conditioned to do things a certain way. America is probably one of the most stressed nations, one of the most obese nations. We have tons of issues that when you compare us to other countries, they don't even have half of what we have. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, everything from, FDA regulations to the toxic foods that we consume, the things that are not banned here, but then maybe they're banned over in Europe. I mean, we have legitimate problems there, and they can't be ignored because we are, as a nation, getting sicker and sicker. I mean, if you don't have the 4 pillars of health, which is proper diet, exercise, or some type of activity, because, we have muscles in the body, so you have to condition them. It's not just your brain that you have to keep healthy, it's your heart, all the muscles. So diet, exercise, proper sleep. Everybody needs about no less than 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're a child or a teenager, adolescent, whatever, at least 10 to 12 hours of sleep, and it shouldn't decrease. I mean, adults still need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, restful sleep. Sleep is the only period of time that we have to restore and repair our body. That's why we go to sleep. I mean, there's meaning to everything we do. I mean, you should be sleeping at nighttime, So I tell my patients, if they're night shift workers, this is not normal. It will never be normal to you, even if you like it, because our body's supposed to shut down at nighttime. That's why it gets dark. That's why it gets quiet. And then the 4th pillar is stress reduction, so it's diet, exercise, proper sleep, and stress reduction or meditation. And to understand that, we all are going to have stressful lives, and we have certain amount of control. Those 4 pillars are things that we're able to control. When you have that awareness, then you can take it to the next level. But most of us would get lost in it. Like, I tell people, if your job is ultimately going to kill you, you need to really think about getting another job. I mean, you work all your life, but you don't enjoy it because
Yeah.
you work all your life, save up money, and then you spend all your money on your health later because you're sick. You
Wow.
know, that's not how I live my life. Like I am very mindful. I have a lot of gratitude for, we're always going to complain, but I always kick myself in the butt and say, I have so much to be grateful for. There's always someone much worse off than me. And when you're able to change that and have positive energy and positive vibes, what you put out to the universe, you receive back 10,000 fold. So I tell my patients, you have to be thankful. You can't be complaining all the time. Like people who are in bad moods all the time or angry all the time. I try to teach them to be more aware. Go get therapy if you need to, but there's so much out there to be thankful for because there is always, at the end of the day, someone who's going to be much worse off than you. And you have to be
Yeah.
able to think that. So gratitude is huge.
You need to be a motivational speaker too.
Oh,
You're you're
maybe one
amazing. But
day.
and I love that, we're really focusing on the fourth pillar for this conversation, but that makes so much sense, covering the spectrum, and it's covering that holistic, as
Mhm.
you explained, method. So
Yes.
Yeah. So as you spoke about the positive emotions and in particular gratitude, how
Mhm.
are you finding that to help one's health and your patients in particular?
Well, I mean, I do neurotransmitter testing, which are we think about as just brain chemicals. But like I mentioned before, serotonin is really important. And, I tell my patients to watch certain documentaries, because you have to understand the interaction between it's called the gut brain connection or the neuroenteric connection. We have so much innervation in the gut. They're actually finding a lot of diseases that we thought were once neurological actually do stem from the gut. There might be some link, for example, with, Parkinson's that they're saying that could originate more in the gut than in the brain. So I test neurotransmitters. I look at the levels. I look at their lifestyle. I see what they're doing. I look at their pharmaceuticals, their medications that they're on, see what could be causing adverse effects. Because sometimes we take things to try to correct one thing, but then we cause 10 other problems with those adverse side effects. So I tell people if you're taking anything that's synthetic or unnatural and you're putting it into the body, you're setting yourself up for having tremendous issues down the road in terms of chronic disease and inflammation. So again, getting back to the four pillars, you can't drive a car on three wheels or two wheels. You need all four pillars at all times to be functioning properly. And some days there's going to be a pillar that's a little stronger than the other, or some's going to be weaker. But the point is to have it stable, to maintain it, to get preventative maintenance on it. And again, some of it's physical, like the eating and the exercise, and some of it's going to be mental, the sleep and the stress reduction, the meditation. So I tell people, take a good look at what's going on, identify triggers that are causing those issues, get the proper testing done. And then from there, we can really understand what the interaction is between how you're feeling mentally, emotionally, to what's going on with you physically.
Are you finding with your patients
So,
that as they take in and start using this positive emotions and gratitude, is it helping them get healthier quicker?
yes, absolutely. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of puzzle pieces, but, having that positive emotional, outlook, those positive vibes and feelings, they don't hinder your healing process. They give more to you to allow yourself to flourish, to thrive, because when you are thinking positive thoughts and you're feeling good and you're not in a depressed or anxious state, you don't have those barriers in terms of getting better, right? There's going to be less inflammation. You're going to have the receptors that need to be saturated in terms of like the neurochemicals. They're going to be functioning properly now instead of just perhaps putting a band-aid on it with an antidepressant or a psychotropic medication. Again, I'm a traditional MD. There is a time and place for pharmaceuticals. That's no doubt. We've come very far and advanced in science and technology and medicine. If someone walks in, for example, with a blood pressure of 200 over 100, I'm not going to give them a bunch of vitamins and say, go. I'm going to counsel them on losing weight, modifying their diet, and I'm going to put them on a pharmaceutical medication until their pressure comes down because God forbid they have a stroke or a heart attack. I don't want that type of liability. So there is a time and place for it. It's just not, you shouldn't rely upon it. It's because in the long run, it's not going to work anymore. It's like someone who comes in for heartburn, like you're not going to take Nexium for your whole life. But in traditional medicine, we're geared towards just giving them a script with like a million refills. But did we ever see why? So, I had a patient who he had reflux. He was taking that medication for, I think, 20 plus years. I told him, stop your coffee. You need to lose some weight, start eating cleaner, cut out all that meat, the deep fried foods, and he said within 2 weeks, his reflux disappeared, which was after 25 years he was suffering from that. And it
Mhm.
was a simple measure of him correcting certain lifestyle factors. And for them, it's very fascinating. For me, it's kind of common sense. But I think if people just take the time and understand all the benefits they can reap when they just make those tweaks in their lifestyle.
And that's where you come in as that integrative Ayurvedic
Mm-hmm.
MD as well, because you're actually taking the time to educate your patients so that
Mm-hmm.
they understand what
Yes.
those behaviors are that they need to correct, because we're not told. I mean, you brought up before about how we have processed foods, we have all sorts of access, easy access. Convenience has become the big thing over health. So it doesn't have to be a healthy food, it has to be a convenient food. But then
Yes.
we also have a lifestyle that doesn't allow, and I know that this is central to something you speak to as well, it doesn't allow mindfulness.
Yeah, again, it's looking at their lifestyle factors and seeing. I tell them, tell me what you do on a daily basis. From the moment your eyes open in the morning, what is the first thing you do? Many people reach over and get on their phone and start just scrolling through their social media or whatever it is. So starting from that, I kind of basically gather all the information, see what their daily habits are, their process. And if I know what you're doing step by step, hour by hour, what you're eating, your habits, you know, everything, I can sit down with that patient and I can tell them this is how you're going to restructure your lifestyle. Sometimes it's as simple as taking 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at the end of the day to have that type of awareness, that mindfulness, and to let them know you need to be aware of what you're doing, because at the end of the day, you're going to be responsible for all your actions. I'm not going to be there sitting next to you, you know, as you're going through life. I'm here to guide you. So I take that and give them the whole big picture, and I show them exactly what needs to be changed. I break it down for them, and I tell them, if you can just look inwards and understand what you're, going through, and stop for a second, just stop, take 5 deep breaths. Nobody takes deep breaths. If you're sitting at a traffic light, it's so powerful when you inhale and exhale, which with
Mhm.
so much depth, because it just, that oxygen's filling everything up and it's giving more blood to your brain. I mean, just simple things like that. So that's a whole, it's not about, oh, I don't know how to meditate, I don't know how to do yoga. Do what you can that's within your limits, and you'll keep advancing from there.
Oh, I
So
love
it's,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Do what you can within your limits. And you know what? I just here I'm talking about our friends who go for walks with their phone. But you said, what's the first thing you do? And sometimes I'm supposed to be journaling my gratitudes for the morning, and I'll reach over and I'll start going through my email because I got to, oh, did somebody answer that from yesterday? So
Yes.
I just got called out because,
I think we all get called out on that. So I
yeah,
mean, I'm guilty
that,
of it too. But it's all about awareness. It's all about, I tell people, you don't have to be better than everybody else. You just have to be the best version that you've ever been. So I tell people, just create a healthier and happier version of your existence, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be of use to anybody. And especially as a woman, as a mother, and I'm a single mom of 3 kids running a full-time business that's expanding rapidly. If I don't take care of myself, my boys are not going to have a mother to take care of them. My patients aren't going to have a physician to take care of them. So this past weekend, in fact, and I put it on social media, on my Facebook and Instagram, I just was feeling under the weather. I think I don't ever get sick, knock on wood, but I had a patient who had inadvertently coughed in my face when I was starting an IV, and it was my fault. I didn't wear a mask, and I felt it the next day. My throat got really, and this is not my normal voice. It sounds a little raspy, but I just felt under the weather. So on the weekend, I decided, you know what? I am going to treat myself to all the things that I do for my patients that make them feel good, because I work sometimes 12-hour days, but again, I make sure that I still get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I exercise every day. I take care of myself, but I gave myself an IV. I gave myself a vampire facial. I took a bunch of vitamins that I normally wouldn't take. I mean, I have my own regimen, but it was just things that I'm like, wow, this is stuff that I'm telling patients to do because the flu season is coming around and everyone's getting sick. And I gave that to myself. I pampered myself.
good
So I
for
called
you.
Yeah.
Pamper the Doctor Day. It wasn't a real thing, but it's a day that should exist. But I felt like $1,000,000 the next day. So if I can do that for myself just once a month, I mean, I live my life on a daily basis very healthy. So I don't need to run, 100,000 miles into the ground and then have to try to fix myself. It's about maintenance. It's like your car. If you don't take care of it, it's gonna have problems. You need to do the monthly maintenance, the
Yeah.
yearly maintenance, but the daily maintenance, if you can't do that, you're never going to get anywhere.
I just want to say to our viewers and listeners, yes, she did say vampire facial.
I
I
did. So
heard it.
it's a Kardashian term. It's just basically it's a PRP facial. So you can do it with growth factors, or if you draw your blood, you spin it down and you get the plasma rich platelets. And using that, you can actually put that on your face. And microneedling it's a certain pen.
Wow.
So we do it for yeah. It's just that Kim Kardashian made it
Popular.
called it the vampire facial because it creates like a bloody look. That was a little dramatic, but it's yeah, it's called microneedling. It's called collagen synthesis induction, so it creates new growth. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about that is that you recognize that you needed a little something extra, even
yes,
though you are in the routine of
yes,
self-care, you recognize that you needed that. And I think that aspect of mindfulness it's
mhm,
interesting because we have some doctors of psychology and psychiatry doing separate talks in the summit, but we've put within our culture, we've put everything else as
mhm,
priority over us. and
yes,
and gratitude is one thing that is almost a selfless act because we're grateful for something
yeah,
else, but we can also be grateful for our amazing bodies and ourselves and take the
yes.
time to say I want to increase it. So kudos to you for
Mhm.
doing that. And I know
Yeah.
Sharon was ready to go and I jumped in on her, so sorry.
So I'm curious. So how can a gratitude practice, improve mindfulness?
Again, it's awareness. So you have this is not something we talk about in traditional medicine because the time is not there, and it's not something that you can bill for, perhaps. But teaching people to be grateful and to have gratitude, if you teach them in a way that explains how you can stall off disease processes mentally and physically by having that gratitude and that awareness and understanding by we work on energy. One of the treatments I do is the PEMF mat, which is a pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat, because Earth is a magnetic pole. Our bodies are made of ions. We have magnetic fields in them. And because of technology, being on the phones and the computers, there's always going to be the downsides of it. Yes, we've progressed tremendously. The smartphones are an amazing thing. And doing this, what we're doing now, is amazing. But there's also the drawbacks where we messed our whole energy up. And if you mess that up, you're also going to feel inflamed. You're going to have mood issues. So if you teach people to balance themselves and do certain therapies and trying to avoid toxic exposure to certain things, that mindfulness, that awareness, and then teaching them to be grateful for feeling well, that type of gratitude for I am able to have my health and I feel amazing and I can give now more of myself to others. That's a very powerful thing. I mean, energy, I'm a very intuitive person and I'm classified as an empath. So I have one of the rarest Myers-Briggs personalities. And I've always had that actually. Every time I get tested, it's an INFJ. And that is actually the rarest type. And these are the people who are very intuitive empaths. So I've always had this, I hate hour, but it's this intuition when I meet someone, I can sense their energy right away. And I either get a good feeling or bad feeling. And it's fair game. I mean, I give people a shot, but you can sense energy. And I know when there's good energy and when there's bad energy. I just have a high level of awareness. And with that comes things like gratitude and mindfulness and understanding how the whole world operates. Of course we wish that everybody could be happy, and it's so much easier, it's like effortless to be happy and grateful. It takes so much more work to be angry, right, and to be vengeful. But because so much has gone awry in the world and there's just so many things going on that are messing us up internally, it's created like monsters inside of us. And without that sense of gratitude and feeling like there's hope, and taking care of yourself on a mental and physical level, I don't think we're really going to go too far. So, for me, as a healthcare practitioner, as a physician, it is my responsibility to identify these kind of issues and to make sure that we are treating the person in the entirety and that holistic sense. And when I say holistic, it's WHOLE, not just HOLISTIC. So, it's understanding and conveying that information, because if people are just treating their body and here's a pill for your cholesterol and they're just angry and they're still not eating right, you're still going to have a heart attack, just as when you were not taking that pill or doing anything like that. So you need all aspects to function properly.
Mhm.
And it's always going to be a work in progress. But if you tell people, keep a diary, write down your emotions, perhaps, maybe seek a therapist or a life coach. So, because sometimes it's hard for people to talk, to other people. Like, people don't want to talk to their significant other, perhaps because for fear of being judged. Maybe friends judge them. But if you go to a third person who is unbiased, like a physician or a therapist, your secrets are safe with them. You can open yourself. I mean, I have people here in my office crying all the time. I mean, I have boxes of tissue sitting here because they're coming in for a health reason, like they want to lose weight and their thyroid is off, but then they start bawling to me because I get into why did they gain the weight? Why are they feeling off? There's so many aspects to it. So that's how I integrate it. And, I think can you still see me?
No, we just lost you. There you go.
I think I pressed the button here. So yeah, I think it would be nice if more physicians can do that. I mean, I'm seeing more of a trend. So I think if we can perpetuate that, with this whole lifestyle shift, would be great.
That's great. And it's nice to know that there are physicians like you who are devoted to educating and helping bring that sense of mindfulness and how gratitude actually isn't some ethereal thing. It's actually a biochemical response that your body handles and processes. But we do have one last question that I'll turn over to Sharon.
Yes. So Dr. Verma, what is your personal definition of gratitude?
My personal definition of gratitude is just having a sense of awareness that we are given enough of what we need to put us through life. We shouldn't compare ourselves to other people because you will never find happiness. There's always going to be someone who's better than you. There's always something more that you're going to want. Be grateful for what you are given. I'm born a Hindu, and though I'm very spiritual, I absolutely believe in reincarnation and karma. We're all here for a certain reason. We need to empower each other, feel happy for each other, and be grateful for the people who come in and out of our lives, for the relationships that we have, and for the ability for ourselves to just further, there are certain things we can't control, but there are many things we can control. So why waste your life being angry and depressed? So just give, be happy, because somehow it's going to return to you. It doesn't matter how, and you should never expect it, but be that light for people.
I really am grateful to you for your message that you have and for the practice that you've done. So we just appreciate everything that you're doing, and thank you for the dedication that you have in changing lives.
And thank you. And just, with your knowledge and you're walking your talk, you're the example to your patients, and thank you for what you do.
And I love your name. I didn't know that it was
thank you.
call you Dr. Light.
I like that.
I like that too. Thank you so much, Dr. Verma. Really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.